Hey everybody, I'm going to do a playthrough of Adventure 3, The Crystal Crown, in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I won't be talking about the flavor text, so I won't spoil that part, but I have to show you what's going on in the adventure, so if you don't want any spoilers, you may not want to watch the video, but basically I'm just going to show you how the adventure plays. In this adventure, you have to find the abandoned study, and in the abandoned study, there will be the Crystal Crown. And you win the adventure if you can get all the way back to the entry well with the Crystal Crown. So now I'll do the best I can to follow all the rules and make good decisions, but if I make mistakes with the rules or forget something or could have done something better, please feel free to put those in the comments. Now in this one, I am playing in a true solo mode. Even though the adventure book talks about the number of heroes being 2 to 5, and I'm sure that that's a great experience, I don't have any other players that I can play with, and so I'm playing in the solo mode as opposed to trying to manage multiple heroes. And I found that that actually works pretty well. Now, in this particular adventure, I've already tried it one time, and I lost, and that first one was very close. Just on the very last effort, I got killed by one of the monsters. And so, in the adventure, if you lose, you actually can add a healing surge. So, that's why I will be starting with 3 healing surges. Now, as you play the adventures, if you play it in the campaign style, and that's how I'm playing it here, you actually can keep the treasures that you obtain, and you actually can go to the town and purchase things. So here at the Yawning Portal, I have purchased Regain 2 health points, or hit points. In addition, I write those down on a 3x5 card so I can remember when I put things away. Also, you keep your gold, so I do have 500 gold in my inventory. So I'm using the character, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it looks like Nayeli, a human paladin, and Nayeli has 10 hit points. Now it actually turns out there's several ways that people work with the hit points. The way that I'm going to use it is I have them flipped face up to start with, meaning that I have full hit points. And when I take damage, I flip it over and notice that you've got that damage marker on the bottom. So it's very easy to see how much health I have left. It also makes it pretty easy to deal with the weakened condition. Okay, so let's talk about the setup of the tiles. In this particular game, there are cavern tiles and dungeon tiles that are not the same, so you don't mix them up. So in this adventure, we're going to be using the dungeon tiles, and they have a little bit of a different appearance. The easiest way that I've found is that the cavern tiles seem to have this watery bluish green type of tint to them. You can go online and find out the easy way to determine the difference between the cavern tiles and the dungeon tiles, but we're going to use the dungeon tiles in this adventure. Now I'm not going to go into the detail of the setup of the tiles for this adventure. You can look at the instructions to see how you do that. But I will mention one thing, that I do something a little bit different because I play in true solo mode. And also because I'm trying to keep the gameplay to about an hour to an hour and a half. So typically what you'll do is you'll take a target tile and you'll mix it up with about 3 other tiles, and then you'll place them, according to the rules, under, for example, the 8th tile or the 10th tile. In this particular adventure, you're supposed to place them under the 10th tile. Now, for the true solo mode, I actually cut that in half. So I'm going to take the target tile and its 3 others that I mix it up with and place it under the 5th tile. And basically that just allows things to move more quickly in this true solo mode. So I have the target tile mixed up with 3 other tiles, then 5 more tiles on top, and I place them on the stack of all the remaining dungeon tiles. And so with our character on the entry well tile, we're ready to get started. So I have a speed of 5, and I'm going to move my character up here and explore. Flip over a tile, and because this has a white triangle, there is no encounter card. We place it down, and we notice we've got 3 monster locations. So that means we've got to put 3 monsters down here. So as I draw monsters, I'll place them on this square, that one, and then that one in that order. So the first monster I draw is the Shadow. And here's what that monster looks like. Next I draw the Bure Hag. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. But here's what she looks like, and she's pretty creepy. And the final monster I draw is the Intellect Devourer. And here's what that guy looks like, and he is pretty tiny. Now, even though the Intellect Devourer is pretty tiny, he's kind of powerful because he has a special ability. A lot of these monsters have special abilities, and his is that if I'm stunned, if the hero is stunned, they take 5 damage if they're hit. So if you get stunned, these guys can really put a wallop on you. Now, fortunately for me, in a previous adventure, I got the Ring of Mind Shielding item, and that is incredibly valuable for those Intellect Devourers because while this item is in play, your hero cannot be stunned. That's great. Okay, so now it's time to activate the monsters. Okay, so first the Shadow will attack, and it says if you're within 1 tile of the hero, it moves adjacent to the hero. And it attacks with the strength of Drain. So I roll a 15 here. I don't know how easy it is to see there, but hopefully you can see that. But 15, that's clearly, plus the 6 attack, is greater than my armor class of 17. And so the attack is successful, and it does the damage of Weaken 1. So this is a new condition within the Dungeons & Dragons games. So here's what the Weaken token looks like. On one side there's a Weakened 1, and on the other side there's a Weakened 2. And the Shadow does damage of Weakened 1. Now there's quite a bit of discussion that was on the game forum about this, but here's how it works. So in the way that I'm tracking damage, here we will put down the Weakened token, and I will take one of the shields, because this is Weakened 1, away for right now. And so this is like you have 1 damage, and really what you're saying is that we have 1 less capability of taking damage. And the other thing is that this damage cannot be taken away by any regaining health points or any other thing like that, but you have to remove the weakened condition first. Okay, so the next to attack is the Hag, and if she is within 1 tile of a hero, she moves adjacent to the hero and attacks with a Slam. And she rolls a 1, plus 7 is 8, so her attack doesn't do any damage. Now the Hag has a special ability that says if the Hag doesn't attack with a Slam, then you shuffle the cards and you do a spell. And I'm taking that to mean that if she is not able to get adjacent to a hero, then she does this ability. So I think that's the correct way to interpret it. I don't think it means if she tries to attack and misses. Finally, the Intellect Devourer, it's their turn to attack, and if they're within 1 tile, they move adjacent, and I believe that they can move through the monsters, and we'll put them adjacent to me right here. Now, the good thing about this one is that when it attacks, it stuns, but I have the Ring of Mind Shielding, so I cannot be stunned. And then their special ability is if I get stunned, if I am stunned, then it can do damage. But so I'm interpreting this and understanding this to mean that because I have this Ring of Mind Shielding, these Intellect Devourers really cannot hurt me. And there is a monster, the Psychic Swarm, that these Intellect Devourers can do lots of damage. So having this Ring of Mind Shielding is really, really good. Alright, so now it's my hero's turn, and I can move and then perform an action. Now, the card says move and perform one of the following actions. You can actually move before or after your action. So what I'm going to do is attack and then move. Now, right now, I'm not going to go through all the details of the cards that I have that I chose. You choose them from your hero card. And I have Divine Health, Shield of Faith, Great Weapon Fighting Style, Lay on Hands, and Whirlwind Slash. And if you haven't played Dungeons and Dragons before, you have different types of cards. You have at-will powers that can be used anytime, and you have utility powers and daily powers. But typically the utility powers and daily powers, once you use them, you flip them over. So they are no longer available in the adventure. But there are certain treasure cards and actions that you can flip them back over, but typically you should think of them as once per adventure. Now, in Dungeon of Mad Mage, you also have expert powers, and I think that this is the first of the systems where you can actually have the expert powers that you can gain as you level up. Now, in addition to this game, I have Castle Ravenloft. I don't have any of the other systems between this and Mad Mage, but I did notice here in this one, the cards that we have often do a damage of about 1. There are sometimes some cards that do more damage, but they're quite a bit weaker than some of the ones in Castle Ravenloft. Now, I don't know if that's something that's true of most of the other systems or if it was just introduced once they started doing the campaigns. I can see why it would be for campaigns because you want to level up their ability to do damage. But it does mean that your attacks are usually weaker in general. And in this particular case, enemies such as this hag who has a health point or hit points of 3, they're a bit difficult to take down. So those kinds of monsters are the ones that have me a little nervous. So for my attack this time, I've got 2 possibilities. I'm going to use one of my at-will powers, and I either am going to use the Great Weapon Fighting Style or the Whirlwind Slash. And the difference between them is the Great Weapon Fighting Style, I have a greater chance of attacking, but I can only attack one hero. One enemy. If I roll a 1 or a 2, then I can re-roll, so that's great. I do 1 damage, and I start with an attack of 8. The Whirlwind Slash, on the other hand, I can attack each adjacent monster, but it only has an attack of 3. So I've got 3 monsters around me, and I am going to use the Whirlwind Slash. Okay, so we'll do the Whirlwind Slash, and I will attack, let's say, this Intellect Devourer first. And I roll a 19. That's great. So that Intellect Devourer is defeated. So we take that card out, and that goes into my experience pile. And since that monster was defeated, we take him off the tile, and we draw a treasure card. Oh ho, I drew the chest of gold. Now this card, if you look at the very bottom down here, it's an advanced card. It has a little gold symbol there. The basic cards have a white symbol. The advanced ones have a gold symbol. And so you get these as you play the adventure. It tells you when you win an adventure to remove some cards and add some more. And this is one of those that was added. So I get 300 gold pieces. Now, because I have the Whirlwind Slash, I can continue attacking monsters, but even if I defeat a monster, I cannot gain another treasure. You can only gain 1 treasure per turn. Okay, so I'm going to attack the hag. I rolled an 11. I don't know that you can see that. I rolled an 11, plus the 3 is 14, and we equal the armor class for the hag, so we actually do damage. If you equal or greater, you do damage. So I will take this damage token and put it on the hag. And the final monster that I will attack is the Shadow. And I roll a 4, plus 3 is 7, so I don't actually succeed on that one. Now I'm going to choose to kind of run away a little bit from these monsters, so I can move 5 and I can move diagonally. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and just all I need is 4. And I want to get to the edge of a tile so I can explore. So I'm going to move my hero there. Okay, so I've moved those monsters out the way, and I'll draw another tile, and here place it with the triangle facing where I'm coming from, and here it has a black triangle, so that means that I will have an encounter card. And we have these X symbols that represent traps. We will put traps there, and then one place where the monster is spawned. And the monster we spawn is an Intellect Devourer. So that concludes the hero phase and the exploration phase. Now we move on to the villain phase. So we draw an encounter card, and this one is Watch Your Step. So that means I draw a trap card and place it with your monsters. Ooh boy. So the trap that I draw is the Wall of Eyes, and this gives the monsters within 1 tile of this trap advantage. So I'm going to place that next to my monster cards. And I'll place this Wall of Eyes token down on the tile that I'm on. Now, if you're not familiar with the Dungeons & Dragons games, as you place the monsters down, you place them in order, and so you activate them in that order. So that's the way that I think that I'm supposed to do the trap, although I don't think it really matters the order here, because once it's activated, if you're within one tile, the monsters gain advantage. So I don't think that that matters too much there. Okay, so now it's time to activate the monsters. The tiles are the rather large squares, and you cannot move diagonally. You can move diagonally between the spaces, but you can't move diagonally for the squares. And so this monster, the Shadow, and the Hag are actually 2 tiles away from me. So since this Shadow is the first one to move, if he's not within 1 tile, he just moves 1 tile closer to the hero. So how do monsters move as they move from tile to tile? Well, you're supposed to move from 1 tile to the next by going and landing on the monster symbols if there is one. Now this tile here doesn't have a monster symbol, and if you don't have a monster symbol, or if it's occupied, you can move to anywhere on the tile. I'm choosing that if this symbol here is actually an ambush symbol, and I'm going to choose to move first to the monster symbol if there is one, secondly to an ambush symbol if there isn't a monster but there's an ambush symbol. So I'm going to move the Shadow to that symbol right there. Next, the Hag activates, and in this case the Hag is more than 1 tile away, so they just move 1 tile closer. Now there is no monster symbol and there's no open ambush symbol, so I'm just going to move her to 1 space adjacent to that ambush symbol, so I'll just put her there. Now this is the case where I think that that special ability of the Hag is invoked, and so we draw cards until we can cast a spell. But it can't be just any spell, it has to be one of the special ones listed under the special ability. Okay, so I draw the Ray of Frost, and that means that the Hag can attack me because I'm within 2 tiles of the caster, and she has an attack of 7, damage of 1. Okay, so rolls a 1 plus a 7, that's 8, so it's not higher than or equal to my armor class, so unsuccessful. Yay. So once the spell is cast, it's put back in the spell deck. Okay, so now it's the Intellect Devourer that moves, and he moves adjacent to the hero, but he really can't do much of anything because he's going to get attack 4, and he can't stun me. And since I can't get stunned, he can't do damage, so I don't really think that there's anything that he can do. So now the last thing is the trap, the Wall of Eyes, and the rules say that it will activate in turn order during step 3 of the villain phase, and that's when the monsters activate. So I think that it was not supposed to activate before, and so as a result, the Hag did not get an advantage, but now it does activate. And so I think that from the rest of the time forward, any monster that is within 1 tile will have that ability. It could be a per turn triggering, but I think that right now any monster within 1 tile will have that advantage. Okay, so now it's my turn to go again. I really don't want to give either of these monsters advantage, and so I want to get as far away as I can from this trap. I could go over here and go over this trap here, and but since it's early in the game, I'm not going to do that. I might do that just to show you what it looks like, but since it's early in the game, I'm going to come back and go this way over here. One other thing that I want to point out is I do have the Divine Health, which allows me to remove a condition and regain 2 hit points. So that would allow me to remove this weakened condition, but I'm not going to use that yet because I don't really have any significant hit points or hit point damage. Now I could try to attack the Intellect Devourer, and if I defeat them, I would gain his monster card, which gives me experience points that I can then use to cancel out an encounter. But if I did that, I can't really get very far away. I can't go the direction that I want to go. I could go in this direction. I could go over the trap. But instead, I'm just going to move over here. So I can move one of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then move 2 more. So I'll move to right here. So I'll move these over and draw a new tile. And there we go. So it's got a white triangle, so that's a good thing. No encounter card. But it has one monster symbol on it. So we will draw a monster. And the monster we draw is a thug. And here's what that guy looks like. So now, in many adventures, you might kill or try to kill all of the monsters as quickly as possible. Here, I'm trying to explore as much as possible, so there's quite a number of monsters that can activate. So since I'm running out of a little bit of the screen real estate, I'm going to move these cards off camera. Okay, so that ends the hero phase and the exploration phase. Now we move on to the villain phase. Now, fortunately, there's no encounter card to draw, so the first thing that happens is the shadow attacks. He's within one tile, so he moves adjacent to the hero, and he attacks with his strength drain. And that's a 6, plus a 6 is 12, so he is unsuccessful in his attack. Next, the hag attacks, and again, she does the similar thing. She moves over one tile adjacent to me and attacks with her bite. Oh, no, slam. So here, attack is a 13, and that's definitely enough. 13 plus 7, that's 20. So she's successful, and she does 2 points worth of damage. So I'm just going to flip over these shields so that you can see that there's some damage there. Next is the Intellect Devourer. He's pretty far away, so he just moves one tile closer. And again, I'm going to put him on the ambush symbol. Then the Wall of Eyes trap triggers again, but like I said, I think that this just stays triggered, but it doesn't affect anything anyway. And now the Thug attacks. And as is typical for most monsters, he's within one tile, he moves adjacent, and he will attack with Mace. He rolls a 2, and his attack value is 6, so that's unsuccessful in the attack. Okay, now it's my turn to go, and now that I do have 2 points of damage and this weakened condition, I do think that I will play the Divine Health card, and that will end that condition, and I can regain 2 hit points. So first I'm going to remove the weakened condition, and the way that I do that is I take this condition marker off and I actually replace it with a healthy shield. And so that's how we deal with the weakened condition markers with that damage. Now I can regain 2 hit points here, so I turn over these tokens that have the damage markers. So now I'm back up to full health. So as is typical with utility and daily powers, I have to flip this card over since I've used it. Now in general, we do save those utility and daily powers for special occasions and not too early in the game typically, but actually they can get flipped back over, so it's kind of a good idea to use it now. Now I am going to do an attack and use the at-will powers. The question is, am I going to use the Great Weapon or the Whirlwind Slash? In this adventure, I'm probably typically going to be using that Whirlwind Slash quite a bit because I'm surrounded by a lot of monsters. If this Great Weapon fighting style did more damage, I might use it more frequently. But for right now, I'm going to use that Whirlwind Slash again. Okay, so let's attack the hag first. And I roll a 9, 10, 11, 12. But the hag has an armor class of 14, so that's unsuccessful. Let's attack the shadow next. So I roll a 2 and 3. That's definitely not successful. So finally, we're going to try to attack the thug. 18. All right, so that one is successful. So he has a hit point of 1, so he's defeated. And he has 1 experience, so we're adding 1 experience to our experience pile. Okay, the treasure I get is an unidentified scroll, and I can use that instead of an action. I can cast a spell. Now, on each turn, these monsters can move one tile, so it doesn't really help me too much to go up to this tile because they can easily attack me in that next turn or to this tile. So I'm just going to move over to here since I've done my one action and now I'm going to move. So I'll move right over here so that I can explore right here. So we flip over the next tile, and again, there's a white triangle, so that's a great thing. We'll place it there. But there are 2 monster areas and 2 ambush areas, so we'll draw 2 monsters. Now this tile is the hidden outpost, and it says heroes who in their turn here do not have to draw an encounter card even if they do not explore a tile. So you could just kind of rest here a bit. Okay, so the first monster I'm going to place here, whatever I draw, I'm going to place here, and the second one I draw, I'll place there. Okay, so the first monster I draw is a Grung, and that's what he looks like. The next monster I'm going to draw is this event Ghostly Procession. You do not place a monster. Yay! In retrospect, I probably wasn't thinking too clearly. It probably would have been better to move up here because then I could move a full 2 spaces down if I wanted to. But anyway, that's what I did. Okay, so the shadow will attack first. Rolls a 13, so he's definitely successful, and his damage is a weaken. So again, we remove this 1 shield and place a weakened condition marker down. Now the hag will attack. She needs to first move adjacent, and then she will attack. She rolls a 3, and she has an attack of 7. That's only 10, so it's not successful. The Intellect Devourer is almost completely out of camera range, but he's pretty far away. All he does is move 1 tile closer. Then we have Wall of Eyes. We're totally out of that area, so no worries there. The Grung is pretty interesting because what he does, he's within 1 tile, so he will jump over to attack me with a dagger and then jump back. So he has an attack value of 5, and he attacks with a 4, so a total of 9. He's unsuccessful. Now, the Whirlwind Slash is really great for all these monsters that have to get adjacent, but it's not going to be very helpful to attacking that Grung, so he kind of stays out of the way of that Whirlwind Slash. So that's pretty cool how the monsters behave a bit differently. Since I only have 2 monsters adjacent to me, I could only attack 2 of them with that Whirlwind Slash. And the hag, she can do 2 points of damage, so I might want to attack her. So I'm going to use that Great Weapon Fighting style that has an attack of 8, and I can re-roll if I roll a 1 or 2. Okay, so let's see how that goes. 10 plus 8 is 18, so that's a successful attack against the hag, and so I do 1 point of damage to her. So this is what I'm saying. In this campaign, in this adventure, it's a little bit hard to get that hag. Okay, now I'm going to move, and I'm just going to move over here, move 3 to 3. It doesn't matter how far because they can get to me pretty easily. I'm going to draw the next tile. And the next tile has another white triangle, and that is not typical at all. Typically you have a lot of encounter cards, but notice it has a lot of traps, and it does actually have a treasure token. And it says that traps on this tile deal +1 damage if they deal damage. So the question is, do I really want to go for that treasure? Okay, so that ends the exploration phase. Now it's time for the monsters to attack. And again, we start with the shadow. So he moves adjacent and he attacks with an 8. His attack value is 6, so that's 14. So again, he does not succeed. The hag then moves adjacent and she attacks. We roll a 7, and she has an attack of 7, so that's 14. And fortunately, she's not successful. The Intellect Devourer is still chasing, and there are actually 3 monster locations, so I could place it on any monster location. I'll just put him right there. Nothing useful happens with the Wall of Eyes, so it's the Grung's turn. So the Grung wants to have nothing to do with that hero tile, so he will attack, and then he actually moves to the closest tile with no heroes. So his attack is a 6, plus he has a 5, so that's just 11. He's not successful, and he moves to a tile with no heroes. I'll put him on that monster symbol there. Now this is a very interesting tile. This is that one that says that I don't draw an encounter card, so this is a good place to make my stand to attack these monsters. So I think that's what I'll do. I'll turn and make a stand, and I'm going to first attack that hag because I really don't want 2 points of damage. And so I'm going to attack her once again with that great weapon fighting style that has an attack of 8. So my attack is a 17. Yay! So I've gotten her. So that's really good because the hag has 3 experience, and when I combine that with the other 2, the 1 experience from each of the other monsters, we've got a total of 5 that we can cancel an encounter card if we need to. And of course, don't forget to draw the treasure card, and wow, we've got a bag of silver, so that's a great one, 200 gold pieces. Now, in this adventure, I am trying to explore quite a bit, so I could move over here to explore this edge, but if I do that, I could draw a tile with a black triangle, and I'm about due for one. So I'm just going to take it easy for here right now and just stay where I am. Okay, so with no encounter cards, the first thing is, once again, shadow attacks. He rolls a 1. Well, that's great. So that's unsuccessful. The Intellect Devourer finally is able to catch up, and he moves adjacent, but there's really not much that he can do because he can't stun me. Now it's the Grung's turn to attack, and again, he's 1 tile away, so he jumps with a dagger, attacks, and then moves back. So his attack is 17. He's successful that time, so he does 1 point of damage. Okay, it's my turn again, and I could use the great weapon fighting style and attack the shadow. That would be a very good thing to do. I could use the whirlwind slash and try to attack both of them, but I'm not too worried about the Intellect Devourer. This Grung I can't get to. I could move over there and attack him. I could also use this unidentified scroll, and that'll allow me to cast a spell. And that's actually what I'm going to do, more to show everybody how to use this than anything else, and just have a little fun. Okay, so I shuffled the spell cards and drew this stone skin, which is basically like 2 extra hit points, because the next time I'm attacked, I can discard one of the stone skins and cause the attack to be a miss. Now that would be a especially good one when a monster such as the hag, which can do multiple points of damage, we're attacking. And here's what the stone skin token looks like. So I get 2 of those, and I'll just discard the spell card and use those stone skin tokens the next time hit is successful. So I'm going to stay here 1 more time and not do an exploration. The shadow will be the first one to attack. And he rolls a 1, so his attack is unsuccessful. Then the Mind Devourer goes next. Intellect Devourer. And in this case, I'm going to roll because that could affect the stone skin. So he rolls a 4. He has a 4, so his attack is not successful. So in this case, that's the one situation where I think that the Intellect Devourer could have caused me to basically waste a stone skin. So now the Wall of Eyes, yeah, that goes, but doesn't really do anything. So it's the Grung's turn to attack. He attacks with a 12. And he has a 5, so that is a 17, and that would have hit, but I've got the stone skin. So that attack counts as a miss. Okay, so I'm going to do the great weapon fighting style against the shadow again. Let's see what we roll. We roll a 16, so we really didn't even need that many, but he is dead because he only has 1 hit point and 2 experience points, which is great. Okay, and I draw the pouch of copper. That's the most typical kind of money that you would get. We gain 100 gold pieces, and it just seems like this adventure I'm getting lots of gold. So now what I'll do after that action, I will do my movement, and I'll move 1, 2, 3 over to here and explore this tile. And we've gotten to the abandoned study. It could have come up here or could have come up in the next 2 or 3 tiles to go, but that's the one we've been looking for. So we place it again with that white triangle facing the direction we're coming from. We've got 2 traps, and we've got 2 treasures and 2 monsters. Okay, before I place all of the elements on the tile, there's one thing that I want to talk about here, and that's the traps here, as they're laid out, are diagonal to each other. And the question is, can you move between those? Now, the rules explicitly state that you can move your hero to any square, even diagonal ones, with a few minor exceptions. You cannot enter a square with a monster. You can move around walls, but cannot enter a wall square. And you cannot move between 2 adjacent walls. You cannot end your move in another hero's square. So basically the rules are saying that you can move diagonally with a few exceptions. And it never says that you cannot move between monsters or between traps or anything else like that. It just says between, now if these were wall segments, you could not move there. So it explicitly states that. Some players play that you can't move diagonally between things like monsters or these traps. Now, I play that you can move between them because of the way the rules are written, but in this game, I'm probably going to run over one of the traps just to show what happens. Okay, so back to the adventure itself. I won't read the flavor text, but basically we're going to take the crystal crown and place it on one of the 2 treasure tokens. It doesn't say which one. I'm going to put it right there. I'll then take a treasure and place it on the other treasure space. Now I'll draw the 2 monsters. Aha, I've drawn the infamous psychic swarm, where you have mind intellect devourers swarm you. Fortunately for me, I have the ring of mind shielding. So this particular card, this psychic swarm, doesn't affect me too much, but we'll show how it works. So first, before I explain it, let me say that there's quite a bit of discussion, so you can go online to read what people think about it, but I'm going to tell you how I think that it works. So first, we place up to 3 unused intellect devourers. Now, that doesn't mean the cards. We think that that means the miniatures themselves. Then note it says, take the unused intellect devourer cards from the adventure deck. Now, the adventure deck is the one that has this purplish pink color. And you can see, if you look through that deck, that it actually has 3 intellect devourer cards. Now, in most situations, I would have more than 3 spaces on the tile that comes up. But notice that I've only got 2 spaces here. And with respect to placement, the rules say, underneath the exploration phase, to place a monster, draw a monster card from the monster deck for each monster symbol on the newly placed tile. Now notice, if I move the grung here, we see that we do have tiles that have 3 monster symbols. So it actually is possible on some of the tiles to place 3 intellect devourers on a single tile. So that's why I think this says place up to 3 unused intellect devourers. So in this case, I think this means that we will place 1 intellect devourer on this one monster symbol and the 2nd intellect devourer on the other monster symbol. Okay, so now let's talk about the cards. We take the unused intellect devourer cards from the adventure deck, we already know to do that, and place the first one in front of you and any remaining ones in front of the next players in order. A player may have more than 1 intellect devourer card in front of them as a result. So that's not typical. You typically don't have multiple cards of the same monster in front of you. So in this particular case, since I have 2 different intellect devourers, and there are 2 intellect devourer cards, I believe that what we're supposed to do is take both of these, and both of these will be placed in my monster line. And so that means that the intellect devourer will actually activate twice on my turn. Now, since I filled up the monster symbols here, then I don't believe I draw any other monster cards. So basically, for this adventure, it turns out that both monsters that I drew are the intellect devourers. And for me, that means that they actually activate 3 times on my turn. But thankfully, I have this ring of shielding. There you go. which is great. So anyway, that's how I think that works, and feel free to follow up with discussion and or take it to the forum and discuss it, because there's lots of comments there. Okay, so that ends my turn, or at least my hero phase, I mean, and the exploration phase. Now my goal is just to get the Crystal Crown and get back to the entry well as quickly as I can. But first, we have to go to the villain phase, and we let the Intellect Devourer move or activate. Now, the interesting thing to be aware of is that for each monster card that I have, it actually activates all of the miniatures. So for the first Intellect Devourer card that I have, it moves the Intellect Devourers, if they're within one tile, adjacent to me. So this one's already adjacent, this one will then move adjacent, and so will this other one. They're all moving adjacent. Now, they would each act one at a time, so I should have moved and attacked, move and attack, move and attack, but just showing you that they all activate. But fortunately for me, I can't be stunned, and since I can't be stunned, I can't be damaged, so I believe that none of these really can do much of anything. So they would have normally attack, 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 and then I would have another Intellect Devourer card, and they would attack, attack, attack again, and then another Intellect Devourer card, attack, attack, attack again. So that Psychic Swarm would be really a nightmare. Okay, so in any case, that first Intellect Devourer has attacked. Yes, and I do realize I've got the stone skin, so we have to let them act first. So the first Intellect Devourer attacks me. That's a 10 plus a 4 is a 14. It would not have succeeded. So the second one, a 20. So since it rolled a 20, that would have attacked, and so the stone skin is wasted or taken away. So that's really the only thing I think the Intellect Devourers can do to me. But they're finished attacking. The Wall of Eyes don't really do anything. Now it's the Grung's turn. Again, he jumps, attacks with his dagger, and jumps back. So his dagger has a 5. He rolls a 5, so that attack is unsuccessful. Okay, now it's my turn. Since, again, I think that you can move between the monsters, I don't believe that I have to kill them in order to get through here. So I'm going to move through, but I'm going to move onto the trap. Now I can move 5, 1, 2, 3, and get to the Crystal Crown. So I'm going to do that, but as I get to the trap, I stop here. That's my first move. And then I turn over the trap. The trap is, oh yes, safe. So that's great, so I can just continue. In other cases, it might have, let's turn over one of these other traps just to show what they look like. So there you can see the Spear Trap 3. That means it would do 3 damage. The Fire Trap does the most damage, and that's a damage of 4. And there's also a token that says draw, and in that case you would actually draw a trap card. And if you do that, that would then activate like a monster. But in any case, since this token was safe, I can remove it, and I continue my movement. So that was 1, 2, 3, and so I end my turn here on the Crystal Crown. And in the adventure it says, instead of attacking, any hero in the same space as the Crystal Crown token may pick it up. So I'm going to pick up that Crystal Crown token now. But there's another rule for the adventure, and that is when you pick up the Crystal Crown, you have to roll a die for every ambush symbol on all the tiles on the map. And just in case you weren't able to see them very well, the ambush symbol is that symbol right there. So I'm going to roll a die for each of these symbols. Let's do that first one there. And if it's a 13 or higher, we draw a monster, so that's 19. Okay, so the monster card that I drew was a Grung. Now, since I already control that kind of monster, I think I'm supposed to discard that card, because you're not supposed to have, sorry about that, not supposed to have 2 controlling monster cards except for those special cases. So the next one I draw is a veteran, so I believe that I'm supposed to put a veteran there. And here's what that veteran looks like. Okay, the next symbol we have is right here. And we roll, oh boy, a 19 again. Well, I had some good rolls in the beginning of the game, but not necessarily right now. Oh man, a zombie beholder. Ah! So that's what this guy looks like. He's a tough one. So we'll place him right here. Let's go to another ambush symbol right there. That's a 10. Yay, we don't have to put another monster there. How about this ambush symbol? 8, nothing there. Then this one. 11, nothing there. Now this one here. An 18, so I do have to put a monster there. Okay, so I draw a thug leader. So there's the thug leader. So I'll move that over, and there's one more ambush location, and let's see. A 13. Okay, we got to draw another monster. Well, I drew a veteran, so I discard that and draw another one. And this time I draw a thug. Okay, this is crazy. There's just tons of monsters on here. The hardest thing is I've got to get past these monsters, so it looks like I only have to kill this one and get through. But they're going to be swarming around me. And as you can see, even though I have gained some experience, I really didn't have to cancel too many encounter cards, so the experience didn't help me too much. In the earlier versions of the game, you could use the experience cards to level up, but you don't do that in this particular variant. If you roll a natural 20, you can do 1 extra damage, but you don't use the experience cards. Okay, so that just ends the hero phase, and because of the special rule, we had to place a lot of monsters, but we didn't do an exploration, so that means that normally we would pull an encounter card. And the encounter card we draw is this Piercer, and I really don't want to get attacked, so I'm going to cancel that using my experience. So I draw the Shadow that has an experience of 2, and the Hag which had an experience of 3, and so for 5 points, I cancel that encounter. Okay, so here we go. We start with the Intellect Devourers. This one will try to move adjacent and try to attack, although he can't really do anything since I can't be stunned. The next one will then try to move adjacent, but he can't. Actually, I'm sorry, he can. I think he can come on the trap, and the treasure just doesn't affect him, so he will move in. But again, there's not much that he can do because he can't stun me. Then the next Intellect Devourer will move in and become adjacent to me, so I'm kind of surrounded by those guys. And that's just the one Intellect Devourer card controlling all of these minis. The next thing that happens is the Wall of Eyes triggers, and I think that these, everything within one tile of the Wall of Eyes actually gains advantage. I think they keep that. So I'm going to give that to the Thug Leader and the Thug. So that's really the first time that we're really seeing the Wall of Eyes being really effective, and I think that they keep that advantage until they actually attack. Next, the Grung activates, but he's not within one tile or on the same tile, so he just moves one tile closer. So we'll just move him to this monster symbol there. Then I have another card that controls the Intellect Devourers, but again, they don't do much of anything, so they just stay here. And I have a third Intellect Devourer card, and again, they activate, but again, they don't do much of anything. Boy, if I did not have that Ring of Mind Shielding, I would be in big trouble. Okay, so now it's the Veteran that gets to activate. So the Veteran is within one tile. He is supposed to move adjacent, but he can't do that. So I'm not really sure exactly what should happen here, so you can put that in the comments. But I'm going to move him as close as he can, but since he's not adjacent, I'm not going to have him attack me. Next, it's the Zombie Beholder. And if the Zombie Beholder is within one tile, it moves adjacent. So he tries to move adjacent again, and I think the same thing. He's going to move here, and since his base is so big, I think that that's where he stays. He can't get any closer. So clearly, I'm just going to have to kill a bunch of these to get out. All right, next is the Thug Leader. Now, if he has a crossbow, so if he's within 2 tiles, he just stays where he is and he attacks. But he's not within 2 tiles, so he just moves 1 tile closer, so we'll move him here. along with his advantage token. Then finally, the thug moves, and the thug moves here because he's more than one tile away, so he just moves to the next tile. So it actually turns out, ironically, that the intellect devourers seem to be protecting me because they're forming kind of a barrier between me and the big bad monsters. But the interesting question is, how am I going to get out now? Okay, so I could try to use that Whirlwind Slash and hopefully get one of these two intellect devourers, but I think I'm going to, because there's a trap underneath this one, I think I'm going to use the great weapon fighting style and try to attack this intellect devourer and then try to come between here, kill this guy because that's the only thing I can do, and then come around here. So I will start with that one, and let's roll an 8. Yes, plus 8 is 16. The intellect devourers only have a 15, so he is killed. So I get rid of him. I do pick up a card from him, and now I draw my treasure, and my treasure I get 200 gold pieces. Alright, so that was my attack. Now I'm going to move 1, 2, so that I'm still in the thick of things, but I'm okay. Alright, now because I did not explore, I have to draw an encounter card, and let's see what that is. Overcrowding. Well, this means if I explore a new dungeon tile, not only the monster symbols, but also the ambush sites spawn monsters. Since I'm not going to be exploring, that's okay. Okay, so here we go again. The first one that happens now is the Wall of Eyes, I believe, triggers. He already has advantage, so that's a condition, so I don't think you stack that. So that doesn't really, Wall of Eyes doesn't have an impact. The Grung is the next one that attacks. He is within one tile, so he attacks. He rolls a 20, so he is successful, and he does 1 damage. The next to attack is the Intellect Devourers, and one of them is already adjacent. This other one will move as close as he can adjacent to me. Again, they can't do much of anything other than just moving close. Again, they would attack again because there's another Intellect Devourer card that would control them. But again, they can't do much of anything. Now the Veteran attacks. So he attacks with his long sword, which has an attack of 7. He rolls an 11. Sorry, you can't see that, I don't think, but that's 11 plus 7, of course. He is successful. So he does 1 point of damage. Okay, the Zombie Beholder. He attacks, he has an attack of 8 with a bite, so 15 plus an 8. So he's successful. That is 2 points of damage. But in addition, he has a special ability. Okay, so his special ability after biting is to shuffle the spell deck and cast one of these special spells. So I'll draw that. Oh no, Finger of Death. Attack one adjacent enemy, and that's an attack of 11 with a damage of 5. Boy, and things were going so well. Oh, 11 plus 16, of course, that's greater than my armor class of 17. So that's a damage of 5. I do have this Spellguard shield, which means I take 1 less damage. But I only have 4 hit points left, so that doesn't really matter. Okay, so that will knock me out. Now, I don't know, when they're attacking me, if I can actually do the regain health points at that time so I don't have to use a healing surge. I'm not sure about that. But I have this awesome Shield of Faith. Yay! You do not lose, you use it whenever you lose hit points, which is now. And you do not lose hit points, and you cannot lose hit points until the start of your next turn. So that's a great thing. I'll use that right now. But of course I have to flip the card over and can't use it again. Okay, so no hit points lost there. The next thing is the Thug Leader, and he is within 2 tiles now, 1, 2, so he will attack me. He's attacking with his crossbow. He rolls a 2. Yay! So his attack is 7, so it misses. But on a miss, he would do 1 point of damage, but thankfully I can't take any damage. However, he also has a special ability that after he activates, we also activate any thugs in play. So that thug is not within 1 tile, so he just moves 1 tile closer. So he moves 1 tile closer. And actually, the thug leader was supposed to attack. Since he has advantage, he was supposed to roll twice. He loses that advantage now, even though I can't take damage. I think that's the appropriate way to play that. So the thug moves 1 closer, but now it is time for the thug to be activated by his normal card. Again, he's not within 1 tile, but he is supposed to move to the monster symbol, so he will move there, taking with him his advantage. Okay, so that ends all of the monster attacks. Now it's my turn. So I have the lay on of hands, and it says all heroes within 1 tile of your hero who have hit points less than or equal to their surge value remaining regain 2 hit points. Now I think that applies to me, especially since I'm playing in the pure or proper solo mode. So I'll turn that down and gain 2 hit points. Now I also have my regain 2 hit point token, so I'll do that, and I'll have to flip that over. Okay, so now I'm up to almost full health, and I've got 3 healing surges. Haven't even used any, so that's pretty amazing. But I still got plenty of ways to go. So now, even though I'm surrounded by tons of monsters, I am really going to try to get this zombie beholder, I think. Actually, let's take a look and think about this a little bit, because that veteran only takes 1 hit point. So if I could get him, I could maybe get through. But no, I don't know really if I should just try to get everything. But the zombie beholder has 3, but he takes up so much space. So not really sure. Got to think about this. Yeah, I think I will try to attack the veteran leader, because even though I can move here, it's going to take me 1 extra turn. To take him out is going to take me 3, because again, I can't hit that much. I only have a hit of 1. So I'm going to try to take him out, and the thug, he only has 1 hit point, so I can get through here that way is what I'm going to try to do. All right, so I'm going to use that great weapon fighting style. I roll a 2. I've got, but for a 1 or 2, I re-roll, so that's a great thing. All right, a 5 plus an 8, that's a 13. Not quite good enough to get that veteran. I needed a 14. Bummer. Maybe I should have used the other one, but there you go. All right, so here we go again. Wall of Eyes, not much of anything to do. The Grung, he attacks. With a 6 plus 5, that's 11, not good enough to hit. The Intellect Devourers, again, don't do much of anything. The Veteran now attacks with a 7 plus a 13, so that's a 20, so he does hit, so that does 1 point worth of damage. The next one is the Zombie Beholder. Oh, just don't you love that. So here he goes, he attacks with a 14 plus an 8, so that is, his bite is successful, which means he also casts a spell. But first, we have to do 2 points of damage. Okay, so we draw the Charm monster, and so what that should do is that I should move my hero next to another hero and deal 2 damage. Since there's not another hero, I think the best way to interpret this is I just have 2 points of damage done to me. Fortunately, I do have the Spell Guard shield, which means I only take 1 point of damage. Okay, now the Thug Leader attacks. He's within 2. 17. So he does 2 points of damage. Oh, man. Alright, so the Thug Leader, once he activates, he has a special ability to activate the Thug. The Thug tries to come to attack, but he cannot because he can't get adjacent. and so he doesn't really do anything. And the same thing happens when for his controlling card, when it's the thug's turn to activate on his own, he also can't attack again. So that's the end of the round. Okay, so I think I'm going to try one more time to take out the veteran over here, just because that's a much higher percentage thing. So let's try that. Oh, great. Oh, 2. Yes, I can roll that again. 19. All right. So that means I take out the veteran, and I can draw a treasure card. And of course, I gain 1 experience point for defeating the veteran. And I draw a pouch of copper, 100 gold pieces. And for my movement, I will just move here. Now, we'll draw the encounter card because we did not reveal a tile. So the encounter card is a piercer, and it's an attack 8. And we roll a 6 plus 8 is 14. It doesn't do damage. And now it's the monster's turn to attack. Wall of Eyes doesn't do much of anything. Grung attacks. 15, so he does damage, so I take 1 point of damage from him. Then it's the Intellect Devourers. Well, they're both adjacent, so they don't really need to move, but they're not really going to do much of anything. Now the Zombie Beholder attacks with a 14, and it does 2 damage. Now that knocks me out, so I am laid down to the side. So now, since the Zombie Beholder bite was successful, I'm supposed to do one of the special spells. I'm not sure if it'll have an effect, but we'll draw a card. Well, I drew the Charm Monster again, and so since I'm knocked out, I don't really think that that has an effect. And since I'm knocked out, the remainder of the monsters really don't do anything because they can't attack me. So that ends the round. So now it's my turn to go again. So I am down to 0 hit points. And so it's now time for me to use my first healing surge. Now I do have the weakened condition. So the first thing that I do is remove that condition and replace it with a full shield. After that's done, I'm able to use the surge value of 5 hit points. So I turn over 5 of the damage tokens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, giving me a total of 6 hit points. And I stand up my hero, and he is able to now do his hero phase. Now, the thug leader does not move if he's within 2 tiles. So if I can get to this place, I have a way to get out. So I will try one more time this great weapon fighting style and attack the thug. I roll a 10 plus an 8, that's 18, and so I defeat the thug. That now gives me a total of 5 experience points, so I can cancel an encounter if I want to next time. I remove him from the board. And of course that advantage goes away, and I can draw a treasure card. So this is an old map which allows me to remove traps, but it's not really useful. Okay, so now I can move, and I can move up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that thug leader just stopped me from actually getting to the entry well, and all I have to do is get to the entry well, and I will win. Now, since I did not explore, I need to draw an encounter card. This card says your hero gains stunned, but I have this wonderful ring of mind shielding, so I cannot be stunned. Okay, time for the monsters to act. The Wall of Eyes doesn't really do anything. Grung now tries to attack. He attacks with the 5, and a 5 makes 10, so he is unsuccessful in his attack. The Intellect Devourers try to attack, but they are 2 tiles away, so they only move to the closest tile. So he will move to a monster location, and I'll have him move to the ambush site. Now, since the Intellect Devourers, I actually have 2 controlling cards, they can move again. So they move adjacent to me, although again, I don't think that it really does anything of real value. But interestingly, next it's the Zombie Beholder that moves, and if he's within 1 tile, he tries to move adjacent, but he's not able to, because of the way that the tile, the spaces that are available, and the spaces are taken up by the Intellect Devourers. So I don't believe that the Zombie Beholder is able to attack. Of course, the Thug Leader is able to, because he has the crossbow, so he will attack. Rolls a 7, plus his attack is 7, so that's 14, so his attack is unsuccessful. Okay, so the end is in sight for me. So I can do 1 more attack, and maybe I can gain a treasure here. So I'll do the Whirlwind Slash again. We'll start with, again, I attack only the adjacent enemies, and I will try the Intellect Devourer. I roll a 7, plus my attack is 3, that's 10, and they have a armor class of 15, so that misses. I'll try this Intellect Devourer in the middle. 20, so that would be a critical hit, so we actually would add an additional 1 point of damage, so that Intellect Devourer would actually take 2 points of damage, but 1 is all they only have 1 hit point, so I actually defeat that Intellect Devourer, and so I do gain a treasure. I also gain the card for the experience point, although that doesn't really matter. And attacking the Thug doesn't matter because I will get a treasure, but let's go ahead and attack anyway. 18, so I actually do defeat the Thug Leader. And the treasure that I receive is a Fortune Recovery, which would have been very good in the middle of the game because I do allow me to recharge one of my powers and I gain a hit point. But it's not really needed right now. And finally, I do my move, and I'm on the entry well, and so that means I win the adventure. So now, when you finish the adventure, if you win without using any healing surges, you actually gain 200 gold points, gold pieces. If you use at least 1 healing surge, then you gain 100 gold pieces. That is pretty typical for most of the adventures that I've played so far, the first 3 adventures. Also, if you win the adventure without losing any healing surges, then you begin the next adventure with 1 less healing surge. However, if you're defeated, you can add a healing surge. That's why I started with 3, because I lost the adventure last time, up to 4 healing surges. Also, when you complete the adventure, you keep all of the gold and the items that you've collected. That's true whether you win or lose the adventure. And even though I gained a lot of experience points, they don't carry over to the next adventure. And of course, at the end of the adventure, you gain all your full health, and you get back your healing surges, your power cards are refreshed, and of course, you get your advancement token. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed that playthrough. I may have made some mistakes here or there, but in general, I hope you got a feeling for how it is to play the game, and I hope it was enjoyable. Enjoy playing Mad Mage.